There is a name for people who are reincarnated after death, but keep all the memories of their previous life. They are called the awakened. I knew for sure there was no justice. No point in trying to be good. Life is chaotic and cruel. I firmly believed that until the day I died. "Hello, Lith. I'm your mama." I wanted to shout back at her. "That's not my name and you're not my mother. Explain how I got here." But everything came out as gurgles and cries. My tongue couldn't form the words I wanted to say. Of course, I realized it's never been used before. Instead, I examined the room through my fresh eyes. Around me was a wooden shack filled with people dressed like peasants from medieval times. Women in bonnets, men in breeches. They all cheered and hugged each other as a midwife rubbed my mother's shoulder. It was scary there for a moment, but I pulled Lith through. In my mind, I put together the pieces. This poor baby must have died in childbirth, and somehow I ended up in his body. And of course, this woman is taking credit for it. What a con. A little girl peeked her head out from behind the midwife. "Can I hold him, please?" But the old woman shooed her away. "Let your mother rest, Trista. Go find Orpal." So that's my sister, I thought. And I assume that angry boy staring at me from the corner is Orpal, my brother. He's obviously not happy to have a new sibling. Better keep an eye on him. Once the midwife moved away, my father Raz hurried in to embrace my mother. I was so worried. "I love you, Alina." Caught in the middle of their hug, an unfamiliar emotion overcame me. Is this what it's like to have a real family? People who love you unconditionally and will do anything to protect you? Is this what real love feels like? I couldn't take it any longer. I vomited all over myself. The midwife laughed. "Isn't he a little r-?" Then she spoke a strange word that I'd never heard before, but it seemed to trigger something within my infant body. A black light projected from the midwife's fingers onto the blanket, and the vomit disappeared. My baby eyes went wide. This world has magic. Reincarnation rules. Immediately, I decided to try for myself. I concentrated on the place within me that was triggered by the old woman's words. With my infant tongue, I did my best to repeat the word the midwife had spoken. She moved closer and gestured with her hand, making the blanket fall back into place. My father smiled. "Not even a day old and he's already showing signs of magic. It's a miracle." But the midwife shushed him. "Quiet. What we witness cannot leave this room. You know what can happen to children who show an aptitude for magic too early." She checked to see who else had noticed, but I wanted to scream. "No, you old hag. I don't know what can happen. Tell me." The midwife seemed satisfied that no one else was aware of what I'd done. "Keep his abilities a secret and keep him away from magic, understand?" My parents nodded. "Thank you, Nan." I wanted to resist, but my eyelids became extremely heavy. The last thing I saw before sleep overcame me was Orpal sneering at me from across the room. Time passed. One hot and humid summer day, the family and I worked in the garden behind our home. At that point, Trista had begun to feel ill, but we just thought it was a cold. She was coughing and always cold and tired. "We have to get inside, quickly," I yelled, and my mother saw in my eyes that I was not fooling. The day before, neighbors had mentioned to Mother that noble men had heard rumors of a child with magic abilities, and we're going farm to farm, inquiring and torturing anyone they suspected of harboring such a threat to the crown. My father squinted at the woods. "I'll handle this," he said. "Get the kids to the hiding spot." The hiding spot was under the floorboards in the kitchen. We laid down, shoulder to shoulder, pressed against sawdust and squinting through the slats. My dad entered the hut. There was a loud thud, and I saw what caused the noise, landing on Trista's head. Mother covered my sister's mouth with her hand. "Please, Lord, we don't want any trouble," my dad said. Raz stood stone-faced. He shook his head. "No boy here. Just me and my wife and daughter Trista. She's sick, so my wife took her to town." He pulled the arrow back and aimed it at my father's forehead. He said 3. He let the arrow fly. I closed my eyes. I reached out my hand. The dark tendrils of energy wrapped around my wrist and traveled up my arms. Mother stared at me in horror. "Your eyes, Lith. They're completely black," she mouthed to me. I barely saw her because when I entered the realm of dark magic, I could see the nobleman's arrow speeding through space and time. Our family would be cast out from the village. Everyone would suffer. I caught the arrow with my mind, and I finally felt the darkness leave my body. Mother clutched Trista tightly, who was sobbing. Orpal suddenly yanked my collars and slapped me clear across the face. "Lith, what have you done?" He was shaking me violently. "He was going to kill Father," I protested. "Now they're going to hunt us down and kill our whole family." Orpal was shaking in fear. "Mother, why didn't we give up Lith? He's put us all in danger." I stood in silent fury. Couldn't they see that what I did saved Father's life? I am the only thing standing between them and certain death. "Lith!" Suddenly, from the woods, my father's light steps found us. He grabbed me and hugged me fiercely. "You did good, son." "Raz, Lith has painted a target on our backs. We have to get to Nan's. She'll know what to do, and she hates the nobleman." Mother was patting Trista on the back, but my poor sister vomited into the bushes. Suddenly, the bush that she vomited into immediately shriveled into white ash. Mother's face turned the same color. Trista's been cursed. "We're taking Trista to see Nana." I had never been to the village before. It was the first time I could see the world outside the farm. I used the same magic I knew from doing chores to swat them away. When the village was in sight, I had a better picture of this new world. It wasn't just my family and farm. The whole village reminded me of a drawing from a Middle Ages history book. My mother pointed out different buildings as we passed. I noticed with surprise that it was bigger than ours, even though our mother had told us that Nana lived alone. It was clear that either Nana came from a rich family, or, more likely, that healing was a very lucrative business. Once inside, we were greeted by the smell of herbs and incense. Nana was busy treating a patient, and my mother struck up a conversation with another family, so I decided to explore. Inside a small open cabinet, I discovered a treasure, a book titled Basics of Magic. My curiosity was insatiable. Better to beg forgiveness than ask for permission, I figured, and started reading. I turned a page and started reading a simple dark magic spell when the room was cast in shadow. Purple flames swirled all around me, and the book leaped from my hands, hovering in the air. A voice hissed, "I see your curiosity, Lith. You have great powers. You could be the greatest mage of all." I tried to play innocent. "I don't know what you mean. I'm only a child." The voice grew louder. "I can help you to fulfill your destiny." My heart beat faster. What kind of cursed book was this? Where was the voice coming from? Suddenly, I felt a firm hand on my shoulder. The flames disappeared. The book fell to the floor, and I heard Nana's voice from behind me. "That's not a toy, young man." Nana brought me outside where my mother and sister were talking to the other people waiting. "How could you just let him wander like that? Do you know what sort of trouble he could get himself into?" My mother confessed, "Lith's just so curious, and he's impossible to stop." The little rascal did not damage the book, so all is well. But he has to know that it's not a plaything. I hated it when someone spoke about me like I wasn't there, so I stood up. I wasn't playing with the book, I was reading it. Nana looked astonished. "Reading it? How old are you, my dear?" My mother answered. "He's 3. Nana gasped. 3! She looked me in the eyes, and I saw a memory wash over her. The magic I did the day I was born. Her tone shifted. "You always were a precocious one, weren't you?" She picked the book up and opened it to a random page. "Read what's written here." I could not read, but I heard the hissing voice again, and I repeated as it instructed. "Jo Run, Shalom, Salah, Sirah." Nana snapped the book closed. "Enough. Swallowing her pride, she continued, "I owe you an apology, Alina. It seems that your son is indeed blessed by the light." The others gasped, and my mother's eyes grew wide. "Blessed by the light? I thought that was just an old fairy tale." I turned to Nana. "Can I take the book with me? I will return it completely intact. I promise." Nana examined me, suspicious. "Can you already do magic?" I blurted out, "Yes, I can," before realizing my mistake. "I'm such an idiot. I just blew my cover." I quickly followed up. "I can do wind and water chore magic." Nana smiled for the first time. "You said that you can conjure water, correct?" I nodded. "Create a water sphere, but don't let it fall. Make it float like this." She produced a sphere of water the size of a fist that floated in her hand. I obliged. "Joran," I said, conjuring a small amount of water. The water floated for a second before I let it fall to the ground, but instead of hitting it, it started floating again. It became a perfect sphere and orbited alongside Nana's own. The crowd looked shocked. Both spheres were spinning by themselves. They captured the light from the sun and turned it into the sparkles of a rainbow. I had always seen magic as a great force to be reckoned with, a useful tool to build a new life with. But this was the first time I saw magic could be beautiful. Nana turned toward me. "I have a proposal for you. You're still too little right now, but when you're 6 years old, instead of going to school, you could come here instead. You could read all these books as much as you want, and maybe you could even learn my trade." I tilted my head. My mother was ecstatic. She wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Nana continued, "We'll have this conversation again 3 years from now. If little Lith doesn't become as dumb as all the other boys in this village, I'll take him as my apprentice. Let's hope you're still interested in magic and books by then." I accepted. Then it was Trista's turn. I observed as Nana used healing light magic. Trista's condition did not improve, Nana said. She would need regular treatments. We were heartbroken. From that day forward, I was allowed to openly practice magic around the house. I practiced creating lightning and fire, and when no one was looking, I practiced healing Trista with the tiny amount of light magic I could make. The dark voice never returned. Until one day, when we were out gathering firewood, Orpal cornered me. "I know your secret, Lith." He spat. "I know about the dark magic, and I'll be damned if I let you kill us all." But this time, the dark voice said something that shook me to the core. "How far will Lith go to save his sister? Will Lith cross over to the dark side? What is little Lith's destiny? Will Lith survive his brother's attack?"
To know what happens next, listen to Supreme Magus only on the Pocket FM app.